February of 1900, a new theater was built in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Originally named the Green Bay Theater, it sat 1,114 people. Later, it was renamed to be the Orpheum Theater, and in 1930 it was heavily remodeled and the installation of Barton organ number 275 was installed. Originally a 3-manual and 10-rank organ, the organ was used for many years and played by many famous organists of the time. However, like many theater organs, it eventually fell into disuse and was eventually sold to the Zion Lutheran Church of Monroe, Michigan in August of '47. It served the congregation there for many years, and many people enjoyed it. However, eventually it fell out of use there and was purchased by Bill Zabel in 1970. He stored it for a few years and then eventually sold it to Village Inn Pizza in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That time it was installed, was very happy for a few weeks until a car crashed into the restaurant, destroying the original Barton relay. This caused it to need a new relay, and Bill Zabel was once again to the rescue. He was developing a system called the Zetronics relay, which he then installed as a prototype at the restaurant. Thus, this organ has the very first Zetronics relay that was ever built. He managed to put the entire thing together in about 2 weeks' time, according to many sources. The organ was eventually moved to another pizza restaurant, which was down the road by Elkhart, called Pipe Organ Palace, and served for many years until later it was sold again to a gentleman in Black Hawk, Colorado, and it was installed in his home. And it didn't work very well for him due to the elevation and limited blower capacity. Eventually, it was then resold to or donated to the Kansas City Theater Organ Society with the intention of installing it in a theater locally. However, the plans fell apart, as sometimes they do, and it spent a long time in a semi-trailer until someone said to Bill Nunn in Hamill, Minnesota, that he had this fine collection of organs, and well, he really should have a theater organ. So he had started the process of looking around and eventually found this Barton, which he purchased and brought up to Hamill and sat at Hamill unrestored and uninstalled for many years until eventually we came along to rehab it and install it. Much work was done to rebuild many of the chests and dedent the pipework and put it into the facility. It is a fine instrument featuring many percussions and many effects. Many of the percussions are not originally Barton due to the fact that when it was at the church, many of the effects and some of the ranks were removed that were deemed out of character for use in a church. Now we will have a tour of the organ. This is where it all starts. This is a 5 horsepower, 3-phase, 220 Spencer orgo blow, which supplies the pressurized air for the Barton organ to use to produce sound from its many pipes and percussion. Okay, this is the listening room outside the organ chambers of the Barton pipe organ. There are 25 chimes which hang on the wall. There's half of them. The other half are on the other side of the room. As we continue around to the right, we have the 1927 Ampico Symphonique reproducing piano, which plays from the organ. It is part of the theater organ, the Barton Theater pipe organ. And there are control boards underneath it and magnets which make it play from the organ console.
So, not only is this piano playable from the pipe organ and attached electrically, it still retains its original role-playing mechanism, which does work. And over here is a collection of Ampico rolls that do go with the piano and the organ if people want to play the piano independently. One thing you need to do with this piano, if you're going to play it originally with rolls or with the organ, is you need to have the spacer that holds the organ or holds the mechanism in the on position. Otherwise it will shut off, and you have to put this cover plate, which is just rubber cloth, over the holes. Otherwise it will try to play all of the notes at once if you try to play it from the organ. So these are features that are necessary if this piano is going to be played from the organ. Oh, and you also should have the tempo control all the way down, otherwise the roll box makes noise.
And then behind, up on the wall, we have an accordion, which plays on pressure from the theater pipe organ.
Okay, so in here we are in the main chamber, and when we were back in the blower room, the wind line that goes from the blower to supply air to the rest of this organ actually passes underneath the backyard of this building and comes up right under here in the floor. And this gray wind line actually is built onto the floor. It will be very hard to remove as it was built in place, and it supplies the wind to both chambers of this organ. Here we are underneath the wind chests with the pressure regulators. These have been redone when we put this organ in a few years ago. They are actual Barton triple valve, at least this one is a triple valve regulator. And the wind system has been tuned to give very good tremolo response, so it actually sounds very musical. If you look over here, the custom winding looks funny. It looks kind of like intestines. But the reason it's like that is to give the proper length of trem line so the vibrato of the organ actually sounds musical and doesn't sound mechanical or choppy or what have you. So this was a unique feature for this organ that makes it sound as good as it does. This is one of the tremolo units that we rebuilt. It is one of the Barton ones, and it is perfectly operational. Make it go here. As they make a lot of noise, that is why they actually have a cover on them to keep them quiet so you can't hear them outside. But they give the vibrato to the wind system to make it sound like an orchestra or a person singing. This organ was actually equipped with Z-Tronics prototype number 1, and a lot of these boards are original. Some chips have been replaced, but that gives the testament to how rugged these relay systems are. Everything is labeled and fused and unplugs, so serviceability is quite easy in this instrument.
And up here we have the main spreader for the Z-Tronics system, along with the timing signals and the power distribution for this chamber, and the controller board. This is the one for the accordion. There are also custom electronics in this organ.
These electronics were built by our late friend Carl Eilers. This organ, being that it is the size it is and the real estate available, it has 2 electronic voices. It has a 32-foot bombard and a 16-foot oboe horn, and they are basically extensions of the existing ranks. It has an oboe horn down to 8 foot, and it has a tuba down to 16 foot, so these are just extensions. And all of the documentation for this circuitry is documented for future repairs. About the ranks of this organ, on this 3-rank chest we have the 2 Violi orchestras. We have the unison rank and the celeste rank, which is tuned slightly sharp to give a nice chorus effect. And this is the clarinet stop. It is not original to this organ, but it is a replacement that was gotten for this project. It's a very nice Denison clarinet, which is what Barton usually bought their pipe work from, either Organ Supply or Denison. Very nice clarinet, narrow scale. On this side, let's start at the back. We have the concert flute at the back. We have the open diapason in the middle. And we have the tuba next. And the front rank here is what we call the oboe horn, although they just call it horn. All the ranks were gone through by me and voiced to the appropriate pressure to sound as good as they could. At the back it has a 16-foot extension for the tuba, which is made by the Godfrey Company. This organ did not originally have a 16-foot extension for the tuba. And over on here, the metal pipes are the 8-foot extension of the open diapason on a molar chest. And at the very back, that is the 16-foot Borden, which is an extension of the concert flute down to 16 foot. Up at the top are the noisemakers. We have crash cymbal, fire siren. The red one is an old-fashioned klaxon auto horn. And the next one, the coconuts, those are horse hooves. I built them to model after the Robert Morton Company, and they have a special actuator against the wall that makes them, and it's all mechanical. It's a series of 3 switches with commutators, kind of like a music box, and they clippity-clap, clippity-clap, and you can adjust the speed, and that is actuated by the console. I can't activate it from here. So.
Here we are on the second level of the main. You can see the control boards over there. On my left, we have the chrysoglot harp, which is metal bars hit with soft hammers. And on the right, we have the marimba harp, which is soft mallets hitting wood bars. And hiding behind the marimba are the speakers for the electronic 16-foot oboe horn and the 32-foot tuba. And you can see the top of the 8-foot diapason. There's the top of the 16-foot flute. And up near the top of the 16-foot tuba pipes, there are the 8-foot tubas down there.
So up here is the little regulator that goes outside the wall. That on the other side of the wall is the accordion stop, and this provides pressure to that. Okay. Here we are in the solo division of the organ, and these two chests were not original to the organ, but came with the stuff that basically, I guess, was in the stash, so we utilized them. I believe they are Gustav Fabry chests that we had put high pressure magnets in so they would work on 10 inches of pressure, except the box that's on 6. So it's a Denison Vox Humana, a Wurlitzer / Tribal Canura block board, and then we have the trumpet, which we are not sure. It has a Denison look to it, but I'm not really sure. It was revoiced to sound rather nice on 10 Inches of Wind. The post horn was an open oboe that I believe was Durst, I think, and I revoiced it into a post horn on 10 Inches of Wind. Next to that is the Quintadina. This was it was said that this Quintadina was from the Barton at the Rialto Theater in Joliet originally. And the tibia clausa next to it is original to the organ. Didn't need a whole lot of fixing, just a little bit of voicing to make it trim nicely. And we installed on this organ a concussion bellows, which cuts out when you have the tremolo running and engages when the tremolo is off. So if you play chords on it, it doesn't, the wind system is more stable that way without, most theater organs did not have this from the factory, but we like to add it. So it gives extra playability to the organ if classical organists play it versus theater organists and whatnot.
And hiding back there is the 16-foot part of the tibia, and on the back wall is the 8-foot part of the tibia.
And the regulator up here controls the swell shades and all of the traps and percussions for the organ, which are above our heads.
There are 11 regulators in this organ.
Mm-hmm. Over here is the 12 volts DC power supply for the organ. And that power supply there is independent, and that controls the chimes that we saw earlier hanging out in the room. And up here is the relay system that controls the chimes out in the room, with the high current relay system up here and the low current system down here. Here's a better view of the back side of this chest. Starting over here, there we go. That's the tibia clausa, Quintadina, post horn, and trumpet. And this is the little extension chest. This chest is actually made by the Kimball Company, and it contains the top notes of the tibia up through 2 foot. I'm standing on the tibia tremolo unit, which may look Barton on the front. However, it is a sheep in wolf's clothing. This should be a giveaway as to what it is. It is actually a Wurlitzer tremolo hiding inside of a Barton muffler box. So that regulator over there is for trumpet, Quintadina, and Canura. This big regulator here is actually just for the tibia. And this regulator here is for the post horn. And again, more relay boards, just like on the other side. Nicely wired, all put together with plugs. Easily serviceable. Hello. Okay, here we are up in the top part of the solo, where all the goodies are. And down here is another part of the organ that was not original to this organ, but was added. It was a Wurlitzer set of tuned sleigh bells. And up above it here is the toy counter, which was built by Carlton Smith, I believe when he was a teenager. Don't get mad at me, Carlton. I know it was one of your early works, but it actually functions quite well. We've gone through it and added some things, and it's quite nice. Against the front wall is the xylophone, which came with the organ, and it actually is not original to the organ. It did have a xylophone. That xylophone is built by the Moeller Company, which was restored and got to work. It works quite well. Over to the right is a glockenspiel, which is Wurlitzer. And below the xylophone is the swell shade action, which is Robert Morton. The shades and shade actions are Robert Morton in this organ. Over here are the 16-foot tibia pipes, which, if anybody knows anything, you can't get much better than Barton pedal as far as fundamental goes. Very, very good bass pipes. And behind me is the indoor set of chimes. These are actually original to the organ. They are Barton, and they work rather well. There's a bit of a leak over there right now, but it's actually pretty quiet in here considering. Some of the circuitry that is unique to this organ, right here, these two relay boards are actually decoding boards that actually have to do with the piano. Now, being that the piano that we saw is an Amphico piano that has expression, what this does is converts the steps of the swell pedal and converts them into the signals that the Amphico can recognize, and basically so when you swell open and shut, the piano gets louder and softer. As it sits now, I believe the solo side is hooked to the upper half of the piano, and the bass half is hooked to the main part of the piano.
And another distribution panel for the low voltage for this side of the organ. And there has to be some high current relays to handle the Robert Morton shades too.
Yes. These here are for the swell shades.
So this is the Barton console for the pipe organ. It has 183 stops. There are 12 general pistons and 8 divisional pistons plus divisional cancels and a general cancel. There's a set button. There are 64 memory levels, which are selectable here. There's a button over here that can adjust the light level around the artist to nothing. The 183 stops are organized by the pedal division, the accompaniment division, the great division, and the solo division, with some auxiliary controls over here. And then there's the other section, which is the second touch, and there's second touch on the pedal, on the accompaniment, and on the grate. And the way second touch works is you can have something kind of quiet, and you put something loud on underneath it, and you press a little harder, and so there's second touch on the grate, on the grate, on the accompaniment, and on the pedal. There are toe studs, which are sound effects. But on the back rail, there's also a thing to make those into combination pistons. There is a tab. This organ is equipped with a sostenuto. What does that do? There's a little switch on the solo pedal, which when you kick it, it holds the notes. But if you put the sostenuto off tab down, then that's not supposed to do anything. And then there's a tab to turn off the Celeste. This is the violin Celeste, the Viol di Orchestra. But you can turn the Celeste off. But yes, and then these three black tabs over here affect the marimba, which is, we haven't talked about the marimba, but we'll talk about it in a second, which is here. And it makes it reiterate. There's another one here for the xylophone. There's the xylophone. And then there's another one that affects the glockenspiel, called orchestra bells. And then the piano plays at a variety of pitches. And the sleigh bells. And the chimes. And the outdoor chimes. And then there are couplers that only couple things within the keyboards, and they're very common. You find them on all organs, but this organ does have a weird one. There's a fifth coupler. Aside from that, it's a very typical theater organ. It has red tabs represent reed stops, white tabs are flute stops, yellow tabs are string tabs, stops, and black ones are couplers or special effects, like putting the traps into second touch. And it has the typical traps. This organ is also equipped with a record and playback unit that is Z-Tronics, as a Yamaha sequencer, which you can use to record what you're playing. And then there's a control box over here so that when you're playing music, if you press the show button, the display will change, and then as it's playing, it will change the stops. and the rest just have to do with the combination system.
Seeing as this organ console moved around and used to be over here by the trailer, but also could be moved into the ballroom, the entrance to the ballroom was a bit narrow, so we had to come up with kind of a clever way of getting it easily movable. So we came up with a platform that could very easily be detached. The pedal board is actually on roller wheels and locks down, so you can pull it out like so, and then it easily unplugs like such. Move it out just a little more. And on the sides over here are latches. So now that it's detached, you can actually move the two halves separately to fit through the doorway, and vice versa. Whether this is used in its new home or whatnot, we don't know, but it was something that we came up with here and for the custom installation. One of the features of this organ is it used to live over here outside of the ballroom, now occupied by a boat. And out of the wall is one of the console cable connections, so you could connect the organ console out here and also up here by the stage is another outlet for when you want the organ in the ballroom, the organ console in the ballroom. You can plug the console in here, which will also make the organ play.
So this pipe organ feature is 7 reed ranks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 6 flue ranks. It is highly recommended if you purchase this organ that you enlist or hire a professional organ builder who specializes in theater organs to properly move it and install it in its new home.